In this video you are about to watch, I want to share a little bit of my personal testimony and show how God's vision of primal faith came to life. Growing up, I was in the church some, I would say an average amount. Always a believer in Christ. I went off to college to be an engineer, fell away from the church there for sure, just being in college and being busy. Post-graduated, got married, etc. I'm a driven individual, and I just got trapped in that societal pressure of these are the things that you need to chase, chasing the career, chasing the finances, chasing all of these real world items. It kind of pulled me away from having any type of focus on faith. So giving up a couple hours on a Sunday just wasn't even a thought for a long time there. Occasional once or twice, a couple times a year. God prepares you for things when you don't even realize it. My second son was born May 25th. About a week prior to that, on a Sunday night, or a Saturday night I think it was, I went out with some buddies, just a standard Saturday night with some buddies, and we did some drinking, quite a bit of drinking or whatever. And for some reason that day, it was just like this weird, hey, your wife's about to give birth to your second son in about 6 days from now. We're supposed to go to the hospital 6 days from now. If you were in the state that you were in last night, you are worthless to her. You're worthless to your family. If something were to happen, you can't be responsible. But I quit drinking that very day. And maybe it wouldn't have, but I do believe that if I would have still been drinking, I don't think I make it off the mountain that day. When I gave up drinking, I really dove into fitness, and I probably trained harder for this hunt than I have trained for anything ever before. To look back at it, God saved me 6 months before I ever left on the trip because he knew what we were going to be faced with. In 2023, I drew my first bull elk tag in the state of Idaho. One of the guys that I had started elk hunting with at that time, he was expecting his firstborn child, so he was unable to attend on the hunt. And I had put out on my social media that I needed somebody to go with me, and I was kind of looking for some local guys. It's got to be kind of selective on who goes on these type of things. Fast forward to the actual season, we spent about 6 months training and prepping together. We went out to the state of Idaho in some mountains that are pretty rugged. We got there about 3 days before season started, and we had located some elk, but they were really far away. And there was only one way to get to them, and it was a pretty far way, and we had this brilliant plan that I thought was a brilliant plan to get to them. But as we got closer to opening day, there was a big storm that's going to come, and it was going to come in overnight, and it was going to be there for about 2.5 days straight. And I thought I had this brilliant plan that I was going to outthink everybody else on the mountain, and we ended up taking a tent, and we were going to sleep there over the night. At the time, my brain was like, oh, well, they're going to get so much snow up top. You're not going to be able to move if you're up top on top of the mountain. So if I just go below the snow line where it's snowing, it won't be snowing, which is true, 100% true. But what we didn't realize is that doesn't mean it doesn't precipitate. It just means it's 34 degrees and raining. So long story short, we ended up diving off the mountain, spent the night in a tent, no problems. We woke up in the morning, and I had this plan of by daybreak, we were going to be on the elk. We knew it was going to be really cold, really wet, a long day. But our plan was to try to get one down first thing in the morning. Amidst that process, plan was going perfect. I ended up shooting a bull within the first 45 minutes of daylight, hour of daylight. And it was in the process of tracking that bull that we went down this shale rock face, and we realized that the shale rock face turned into cliffs. We had to go around backwards up something that we just basically slid our entire way down. And that passage was almost unpassable, like almost unclimbable at that moment. And that snowstorm that was 3,000 feet above us pushed down into the drainage and layered the side of the mountain with 6 inches of snow within minutes. It was a whiteout blizzard. At that moment, we realized we were in a really bad spot. So I actually used my Garmin inReach, which is a satellite messenger device, and I put SOS. I was able to get an SOS signal out after a few minutes, but the storm was kind of trapping it in, but there was no correspondence happening. So we quickly realized we were on our own, and there was basically no way out of it except like nobody was coming to save us. We ended up having to leave all of our packs with all of our gear and everything. We strapped them to a tree, rifle, all of it, left it on the side of the mountain, and we climbed our way out of there. Fast forward about 10, 12 hours later, we had finally made it, traversed down through and got back to the tent, and we ended up spending the night there. And when I say 10, 12 hours later, that's a short story for 10 to 12 hours of the struggle that we went through. And by the time we got to the tent, we were in really, really bad shape. Borderline hypothermia, very dehydrated. We had left everything over there. So we kind of spent the night trying to rehydrate, melting snow as fast as we could, but it seemed like every hour that passed, we were getting worse and worse, more and more dehydrated. So we just kind of hung out in the tent. We were trying to rehydrate and recoup till about 2 o'clock and then get out of there. We ended up having to leave a little bit earlier we were trying to dry clothes out. We were unsuccessful in being able to do so. So we still had about a 4-hour hike to get back to the side-by-side, which would then still be on top of the mountain. And we had to try to traverse off there at that point. And I can remember very clearly, to back up just a little bit, I can remember very clearly as I was coming up the mountain to the tent that night, where me and Damien were having conversations the whole time of just like keep going, because we were digging to a depth of like we haven't been before. I remember very distinctly that Damien said the words like, I'm not gonna make it, you're gonna have to leave me here. And I was like, I'm not leaving you here, and I'm not staying here, so we got to keep going. I said, just put your family in the forefront of your brain and just keep taking steps. We'll take 7 steps at a time and take a break. And we did that for hours and hours on end, and we finally reached the tent. Distinctly remember, I can still picture it like super clear, that me and Damien were on this grassy knoll coming up to the tent, I'd say about 2 hours before dark. And I had this like weird out-of-body experience where I kind of like I was looking down on us for a period of time. But fast forward to the next day, we ended up starting our hike, and we did so in about 4 hours. I actually had to leave Damien for a little bit. I had a little less clothes than he did, dry. I was pretty much wearing pajamas. I was in my base layers, and it was 17 degrees, and so I was hiking pretty fast to try to stay warm. And so when there was a cresty knoll like coming up to the tent, and I was approaching the tent, and as soon as I seen the tent, it's an experience that I still am trying to wrap my head around completely, but it was just, I was dropped to my knees. I wasn't crying out of sadness or anything else, but I was like, I was just bawling. Like it felt that way. There was that much tears. But there wasn't sadness, there wasn't anything, but it was like, feels like, I'm trying to put it like how long I was on my knees for. I can't imagine it being more than a couple of seconds, but it was like so clear to me that God grabbed a hold of me, and like, it was clear at that moment that this entire thing, like he was there, he came to save us. We had SOS. There was no human that was coming to save us. It was God's intervention. And when everything went dark, it was like this download of information, and like it wasn't so much like all this knowledge or everything, it was just like instantaneously at the core level, all my core values just completely shifted. Like, this is what you're supposed to focus on. These are your values. This is what you hold true. And it happened so fastly, but it was so profound. And then it got daylight again. Like, it was weird. It was like, if maybe it could have been like less than 3 seconds that I was on my knees. Maybe it was 10 minutes, I still have no idea. Long story short, we ended up making it off the mountain that day. We actually came back a couple days later and continued on the adventure to go get our gear. But on my way home, I text my wife like, hey, I don't understand all this, but our life is gonna look a lot different. That day when I got home, she's seen a difference in me. It was very clear to her that like God spoke to me that day, and it was a total transformation of everything. I'm an engineer by trade, and so my brain works a certain way. So I'm researching everything. I'm Googling, I'm trying to understand the science of it. Like, what happened that day? There's no like doubt in my mind that something happened. It was very weird. Like, it was very, very clear to me. So I wanted to figure it out. So I'm researching, like, is there endorphins that can cause this, near-death experiences? And I'm just trying to figure it out. Like obviously I'm battling at this time. Like, is that God? Was I so dehydrated that it was some sort of confusion? Was it just an overwhelming feeling of like, oh my gosh, I finally made it? I was like on fight or flight mode. I didn't understand it. Something kept me feeling like it was God at that moment. I didn't know, like I was still wrestling with this at this time. And so I ended up going, I texted a good friend of mine, asked him if I could join him and his wife at church or go to their church. And so we had started going to this church, Living Word, in Vandalia, Ohio. On a Sunday, there's a sermon going on. I can remember it very clearly, like who was up there, where we were sitting, and they're just talking, and it has nothing to do with ministries, it has nothing to do with any of this, or even talking to me, and I was just listening. And what happened on the mountain that day where everything went completely dark and it was like a download of information, it happened again. My wife is standing right beside me, I got my kids with me, but everything went completely dark, and it seemed like the pastor was only talking to me, and there was another download of information, and it was just a message that this is like, it was basically God saying, this is my mission and you're to be the shepherd of that. And it went back to daylight, and I was like trying to figure it out, and we walked out of the church, and I had no plans of starting a ministry. I had zero ideas of it, I wasn't even thinking anything along these lines when I walked into church that day. But as walking out of it, we were coming up to the car, and I remember telling Katie, like, hey, we're gonna start a men's ministry. She's like, what? And I was like, I'm gonna take people hunting. And we have our largest project to date that we will be doing in the last week of August. As of right now, we have roughly about 50 guys signed up for this. There'll be over roughly 100 people traveling from Ohio, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Michigan. We'll be caravanning to the state of Utah, where we will be going on a backcountry elk hunt together. We'll have side-by-sides, we'll have pastors gonna be going there. It's gonna be an incredible experience, and it's growing by the minute, and we've been able to acquire some good backing from some outdoor companies to kind of help pull this off. Western hunting is what got me to start training and take care of my health, and that's a great, can be a great motivator for somebody. So when we get together, we have men's groups. They get together, we have some that get together weekly, we have some that get together bi-weekly, we have virtual ones. But typically, the way that's structured in our original one, we get together, and about 45 minutes before we get into the word or whatever we're going over before we have our meeting, we usually do some sort of butt kicker workout. We sweat together, we go out, we work out together, we push each other, laugh, cry, complain. But yeah, we do that, and then we usually get into some scripture or workbook or whatever it is that we're working on at that time. If you're looking for something, and just having a good group of guys, we keep it fun. We just not working out, like we just have fun together. If you can probably talk to any of the guys who have been going to Tuesday nights, we laugh, we have a good time, we push each other. Sometimes we're complaining jokingly about the workout sucking and everything else, but if it's something that you're intimidated by right now, we have help and support for that. We're having private training for everybody that signs up for this. You'll have individual coaching on an app that gets rolled out to you. You'll get daily messages. You'll have a group that you'll be within. You'll be able to chat and kind of bounce off and kind of hold each other accountable and talk about how your struggles and like how you're feeling. So if you had to pick a bucket, yeah, I would say it's men's ministry. But it's more just a network for the guys in society that maybe the churches haven't reached, and like society has failed, and they feel alone. They feel like they have all these societal pressures and they've got to handle it on their own. And it's just questioning the societal norms, and the mission statement's a little bit longer, but a short summary is we like to come up and cultivate life-altering experiences through these adventures and taking men on these adventures. It's just been a cool thing to watch God's work.